My name's Michael Gill. I was born in North London and I've resided here in Tulum for the last 6 years with my wife and 2 children. I now own 2 businesses, one of which is a brokerage and the other one is a development called TOPIA, which I'm excited to talk about today. Might sound a little bit cliche, but kind of Tulum chose me. And I don't want to kind of sound cheesy when I say that, but I moved here during the pandemic, right? And the options I had were so limited. This was like one of 3 places I could go. My wife was quite heavily pregnant at the time, so we needed somewhere to move to. We were planning to move to the south of Spain prior to that, but the borders closed. I had some friends here in Tulum and they invited us over and we went, and that was, I had been here before several times, so I was familiar with the place. So I was like, yeah, let's do it, it's calling us, and I haven't looked back since. So what is the Genesis Villa Collection by TOPIA? It's the first of many projects that we plan to do under the brand of TOPIA. And we really just wanted to set the bar for luxury, not just in Tulum, but in the Riviera Maya, and that was our ambition. We wanted to really set the bar as high as possible to really catch the attention of people. We knew what they wanted. We had the perfect landscape and environment. We had beautiful amenities, we had the security, we had the catalog, so then, what we needed to do was reinforce that, right? Okay. Because you can't just say, okay, here's a house, here's a beautiful project, right? People, want a homeowners association, things like this. So essentially, once we'd sorted out the collection and where it was going to be, the next thing was really to reinforce our team. So to basically seek out the best consultants and advisors we could. So started with my aunt Sue, bless her. She was the biggest guide ever when it came to the branding of the project. She was a global director at Saatchi & Saatchi for about a decade, and she really helped us out. Mario also has a very helpful aunt, coincidentally, who has a huge luxury real estate company in the south of Spain, in Marbella. And she's been an amazing advisor. I mean, we got very lucky with having those family members to seek advice from, right? Then we also brought in people like Gabrielle Holt, who's the hospitality director, who has basically activated the hospitality programs in places like Habitas, Scorpios. He's a world-renowned hospitality expert. So, we had an abundance of access to just incredible advisors. So we reinforced the team until we felt that we were able to not just give you a house on a piece of land, right? You've got the services, you've got the management, you've got the 5-star hospitality. So that's what we wanted to go for. We wanted to make sure that the experience was seamless, right? The name TOPIA, stands for Latin Utopia, okay? So what we were trying to create is like the most utopian experience you can possibly have, that heals you, from the inside. So because a lot of people live very stressful lives in North America particularly, but around the world in general, we wanted to create the ultimate, release for people. So you could come, experience comfort, experience luxury, watch the way that light dances around the homes, which actually helps with your circadian rhythms. So the homes aren't just an asset, they actually heal you. So we've, put a ton of consideration into it, and they keep coming. We have partnership with the PGA golf course at Tulum Country Club, for example. So the partnerships that we've been able to catalyze or create have been just like fantastic. And now we kind of due to all of this advice that we've received, have been able to produce something that is now the TOPIA that you see today. We're very proud of it. We're very grateful to everyone who has helped. I'm not going to sit here and say that this was all, because of me. I was just a cog in the machine, basically. So now you see today something I feel that we are all extremely proud of. We've plucked the attention of some super high level brokerages in the US, which is also unprecedented. So I really am happy to give you that explanation about the project, and I look forward to hopefully showing people around there regularly over the course of the high season. So my introduction to Pinot Suarez, it's an interesting story actually. It all started with our introduction to the Awen project, right? That was how we met Puff Tulum, the company that run the Awen, that built the Awen, that visualized the Awen as something spectacular, that was really impressive. And through understanding the Awen, we slowly got to understand more about the master plan project, which was Pinot Suarez, which basically is all around it. It's actually branded as Soy Tulum as well. So you may also hear about it talked about in that way. But Pinot Suarez is just incredible. I mean, it's mind blowing. Like these guys, they are so cautious about the environment, and it's not greenwashing, They literally care, and they don't even advertise it. They don't show off about it. It's just genuine care for the environment that was really impressive to see, the way they build their roads, is just mind blowing. They use ancient Mayan wisdom, for the way that they chop their trees down, so they do it on a full moon because the sap is at the bottom on those evenings, right? So that's when they will chop their wood for it to get for them to get the best quality wood that's the most dry, for example. But also the way they do their roads is just incredible. So it basically involves 11 layers of rock, different types of sediment, sand, dust, for example, starting with big rocks going smaller and smaller. And what this does is creates like this beautiful kind of road, which people might say is a dirt road, which is a stigmatized term, to be honest, because the way they deliver the roads there, particularly in the other side, where they've really, gone to town first, right up by Nopalitos Lagoon, is a great way to see what those guys can do, and they actually are now currently working on doing a road like that as we speak, which takes you right up to the doorstep of our project. So I'm super excited about that. So the 11 layers, what they actually do is they allow water to permeate through the road, right? And with that, it means that the mangroves can still thrive while still having infrastructure there, right? So it's very innovative. It's very impressive, and it's actually nice to drive on these roads. Like it's actually enjoyable. It's actually much nicer than driving on most roads in Tulum, which are asphalt. Which, by the way, asphalt I learned from these guys in Pinot Suarez. They is a material which, when it gets rain on it, leaks diesel into the foliage around it, right? So basically, eventually, slowly kills all of the vegetation around it, right? So that's one thing that you won't see in Soy Tulum, But there's so many things that are just incredible about Soy Tulum. The wildlife, the birds, every time you go, you'll see a different thing. You were like, I didn't know that was even in Mexico. I was there the other day with my mother and my little boy, and we saw 2 deer, for example. So strict guidelines when it comes to, looking after the environment that are non-negotiable, no matter how much money you offer these guys, they will not negotiate on these things, that leads to, consistency, a vibe. You see everywhere has beautiful nature around you. The projects all have the same philosophy. You have a lot of eco projects coming there, some amazing projects to come there, some amazing brands that are coming there that I cannot say on this video now, but people will hear about it soon. And these brands are like the kind of level of brand that you think would just, I kind of think, well, why didn't they choose Tulum, right? Why have they picked there? But what I've come to realize is actually because it's so secure, because they have such a dedication to sustainability, and, it really is going to be the new luxury area. It's actually going to become basically the heart of the Riviera Maya, in my opinion. The Nopalitos Lagoon down to the project of ours, another project called I Am from some partners of ours as well, which is a huge healing center. But yeah, I mean, so the Pinot Suarez project is, exceptional for so many reasons. But we're so lucky to have been given the opportunity to have this project, the Awen, within Pinot Suarez in such a great location. And I highly recommend to people that if they haven't seen the area, to come and check it out, because it is really spectacular. Another super important component of Pinot Suarez is the infrastructure that's coming to the area, okay? Now you have a huge road, which recently the governor of Quintana Roo announced they're going to be starting on, in the near future, which is going to basically bypass the Boca Paila Zona Hoteleria or hotel zone in Tulum. Okay, which is going to solve a huge problem, right? Which is the traffic, right? So a lot of people who've been to Tulum know that if you want to go and have dinner in, certain places like Casamalca, during peak season, it's going to take you up to 2 hours to get home currently, because you have a 2-lane road, you have a lot of people leaving places at the same time, especially when they close. But anyway, so this bypass is going to actually kind of, like I say, solve that problem, right? So you're going to have a 4-lane road with sidewalks going from the Kukulkan all the way down to Sian Can, right? With at least 11 access roads taking you to the beach. This is basically up and coming infrastructure which is coming to Tulum, which is super important, and it's actually within the community, right? So with that, we have access to some of these roads, as developers. And our investors in our villas will also have those privileges. So you'll be able to use the roads, access the beach, at various points before the road actually publicly opens. Okay, so that's also something awesome. Okay, but it's going to become a lot more on the map when people are using that road, because it's going to be, people will be driving down that every single day, and that road will actually go all the way up to the airport eventually. So in the future, the way you will travel around the area, Tulum Airport, for example, Tulum Airport, you'll be able to get straight down to Sian Can in 30 minutes, like to the entrance, right? Which is like inconceivable before. And now if you would do that today, it would take at least an hour and a half. So like the infrastructure improvements coming are amazing. Pinot Suarez is going to be a big part of that. So the main considerations we took when we were thinking about the aesthetics, the designs for the Genesis Villa collection, really was to span, from the contemporary, modern, minimalist style through to traditional styles, and to see if you could tie that all together. So that was really the exercise, right? Because you really kind of have, two main types of buyers' aesthetics. It's either one or the other, or somewhere in the middle, right? So that's really what we wanted to reflect in the 6 villas for the Genesis catalogue. So you'll see the extremity of contemporary modern minimalism in Paradiso, right? Also Ananda. Then you'll see Aire, right? And Aire is much more brutalist, right? Actually was very much inspired by Guillermo's work, even though we executed it together with Ulysses. Same with the first 2 I just mentioned. Paradiso, Aire, and Ananda were all work we did with Ulysses. However, after that, we went on to finish them with Eros, using Patricio. But anyway, so then you move on to the more traditional villas. So you have Hacienda, right? Which is a homage to haciendas, which I found out are literally a regional concept. Like the earliest haciendas were in Merida, and they were humongous, right? And these things are now hotels, libraries, and they're all owned by the state. But at one point, these huge buildings, which were so architecturally outstanding, and still also the structure still stands solid today, and some of these are like 300-year-old, right? Villas. So basically the height of kind of opulence, really. So I'm a massive fan of traditional architecture. So Hacienda was a bit of a pet project of mine, especially because it was the ability to actually work with Guillermo Alcocer on a project, was super fun. And Guillermo just did the best job, right? So anyway, I won't go into that too deeply, but I'm very happy with how that one came out. Los Arcos was one of the last ones we ended up designing. Now that one has an interesting story, but which I'll get to in a moment. But yeah, as you can see, the span there, right? Los Arcos and Hacienda are very much on the traditional side, whereas you have the first three I mentioned, which are much more on the contemporary side. However, you kind of have Aida sitting there in the middle, which kind of ties it all together. At the same time, you also have, you know, certain tropes that you'll see within the villas, such as, the gardens, the hanging gardens that you see often, you know, in all the different villas that kind of tie it all together. So that's what we wanted to do, is really use tropes that you could recognize the TOPIA brand. No matter if it's contemporary modern or it's traditional, you still know it's TOPIA. So that was our aim, and that was our main consideration. So the architects we chose were basically for those purposes. As I mentioned, Ulysses helped us with some. Guillermo started Hacienda, and we finished that, did a lot of work together with Eros Design Studio, and I'm so happy with how we delivered that. I mean, the green tile, the Riyadh Moroccan arches, just... I was very, very impressed with how Patricio executed the finish on that villa. And then Los Arcos also, you know, was actually that one. So I will tell you a little bit about the story. So I actually wanted to build a home. When I first moved to this area, I bought land just across the road from here. And I designed a home to go on that land. And that was with an architect firm called Tobalam, who built the famous beach club Icao, right? Who a lot of people know. It's kind of a little bit esoteric, but a very, very cool beach club. Those guys are awesome. They're from Merida. They designed Los Arcos original, right? Based on my hand drawing that I did, right? Never ended up building it over there for various reasons, but still had the intellectual property, had the designs, you know, had the AutoCAD files, etc. So when we were given, you know, the opportunity to build homes in the Awen on much bigger lots, right? That gave us the ability to really expand on the concept, right? And that was a very fun exercise together with Patricio, basically, because what we did is we kind of took a design which was your typical Tulum kind of top-heavy villa style and just spread it out. So we literally, like in a modular fashion, took rooms and just made it into a much longer shape, which was much, much more ergonomic than the previous design due to lack of restrictions. Anyway, so yeah, those are just a few of the sort of considerations and a few stories about those villas. But it was a very exciting process, as you can probably tell from my enthusiasm. So when it comes to trends, right, I've kind of had a lifelong obsession with, what are trends, and it originally applied to my music career. Right, I was very much into underground music. Right, growing up in London, I had access to a wealth of incredible underground music, such as UK garage, UK house, stuff like that. So I was producing music for many years and touring as a DJ, and so the idea of trend really kind of came into my head there a lot, because I'm thinking, okay, so how do you define underground from commercial, right? Commercial music is trendy by definition, right? What attributes, what characteristics come with trendy stuff? Generally quite throwaway, right? Which is something that a lot of people witness nowadays. You don't get as many timeless songs coming out nowadays. It's generally stuff that sounds good, you listen a few times and then you're bored, right? So why is that? Because everyone's trying to be trendy. Everyone's trying to sound like the next person, right? And it's something that I've always been opposed to, because I feel like true art needs to come from the soul. And one thing that makes that difficult is money, right? So you've got to survive. You've got to pay the bills, but then you also want to produce artwork or anything that's going to come out of you, in a pure way that's honest, but still pay the bills. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's impossible, but people still give it a good go, and I admire those people, right? Coming to Tulum, I noticed a lot of that kind of trend mentality. It's like, okay, that guy just did that, and he just sold his house for that much money. Okay. What's his, what color is his walls? Yeah, okay. All right. Next thing you see, carbon copy next door or, somewhere else. And, you just end up with like saturation, really. So people aren't, you stifle innovation when people are too focused on making money, right? And that's something that, I noticed here more than most places I've ever been to be honest. It was like, really, who can throw up the building the fastest, that looks the most like the project that's hot right now, to me, I found that was really you know, something that I really wanted to be as far removed from as possible, right? And so you know, by my kind of, you know, lifelong kind of obsession with you know, trends and trying not to follow trends as much as I could while still making money, you know, I applied that, you know, really to the collection in a sense of, I just want things to be timeless, right? Timeless and trendy is the opposite. It's like I said before, trendy is throwaway, timeless is timeless, right? So the opposite of trendy is timeless, right? So we wanted to create a project which was truly timeless, right? That would actually stand the test of time, that wasn't built for monetary purposes or profit or anything like that, but actually a legacy project here in Tulum, you know? And I don't think many people had that agenda when they were building in Tulum, you know? There are a few, but not many, right? And we wanted to be part of that club, right? So create a legacy project in Tulum, world renowned, you know, and in order to achieve that, it was all about basically, you know, finding the strongest team who could provide the best possible services, executions, inside the villas, stylistically, technologically, innovation, etc. So, you know, it was just basically just trying to do the best thing we possibly could, and make sure that it was original, you know, truly original. And with that, I feel like, you know, you can create something that will stand the test of time, basically a generational asset, you know, and that's what I feel like we're building here now. And I'm very proud to be part of that. How we actually came to meet Roberto Carli, owner of PGA Arquitectos, was actually through our union with Swiss Private Placement, actually. So Mario and Max had been working very well with Roberto. And Mario, you know, has an exceptional contact list and network through his, you know, he's a very social person, and has, you know, friends in high places. And he was recommended, Roberto, by some of his, you know, influential friends in the area, right? So we already had a very good testimonial about him. He's Italian originally, but he's been living here for around 25 years now, building the whole time, right? So I think you'll find that in Tulum, he's probably the most experienced builder, right? And his reputation, you know, is very high, you know, so he builds, you know, historically he's built predominantly for politicians, celebrities, you know, does a lot of beachfront projects, you know. But what's important is his experience and the number of years he's been doing this, right? Because Tulum is not an easy place to build, right? Many developers find that out the hard way, you know. It's quite funny, although, you know, I don't like to laugh at people's expense, but, you know, you see big shot developers coming in with all their ego. Oh yeah, I'm going to build this amazing, elaborate thing. And then, you know, they don't consider that, you know, the ground is, you know, totally different to where they're used to. Right. Anyway, so Roberto, with his experience, right, was working on the project Selva Alegria with Swiss Private Placement, which exists in Region 12, and actually are the biggest homes in the area with huge lots, right? So they actually stood out immediately for their size. So that was also part of the reason why there was a lot of synergy between us, because we both had the same kind of idea. Let's build big houses on big lots, right? And they did it first, and they executed it amazingly well with Roberto and his team, he's trained each one of them individually, right? He sources his materials like, you know, you can imagine, he has all the best contacts, his execution is fantastic. And what's great about Roberto is he's just such a lovely guy. He's so patient. He's just got such great energy. And when a lot of clients that actually show interest in Tulum, I'd say maybe 10 to 20% have experience in construction of some sort. You know, some are full-fledged builders, others maybe have done an extension. But these guys look around and they see the construction style in Tulum, right? And it's night and day. When you look at Roberto's construction sites, you see something completely different to other construction sites in Tulum, right? For example, it's neat and tidy. There's no mess, you know. There's not people sleeping in the rooms in hammocks, you know. You see an organized, you know, kind of system working very well. You have the project manager, Geraldo, who is an awesome guy, who really, he's strong, he's intelligent, he's loyal to Roberto and us, and he's just an excellent, also person representing that team. So we're blessed to be working with those guys. I'm so, out of anyone, we could have had the pleasure of being introduced to build our homes. I'm just so grateful that we were introduced to those guys. And we're currently quite close to completing the show home within the project of the Genesis Villa Collection in Yawen. So that is a 5,700 square feet of interior space, 5-bedroom villa, beautiful finish that we've done bespoke actually for a client who's very much into like kind of a certain finish, which we've branded as we always do with the TOPIA style, but it's also going to be a beautiful show home. So I'm so excited to announce that and show everyone what it's going to look like finished. But so it's just seeing how those guys work, how big this thing is, how solid the structure is, and it was impressive. Like everyone in there, all the owners of the project was like, who is this guy you've got in that house? It's huge and it looks so well done. It's even the locals who were born here were super impressed, with him. So we're blessed to have him anyway. So thank you, Mario and Max, for making that introduction. So I was introduced to high-level hospitality, fortunately, at a very young age, as my sister was a food critic at the time and used to often invite me to her reviews. Right? So I actually was exposed to some of the highest quality restaurants in London growing up. Actually, at the time, I don't think I realised quite how lucky I was. I think at a very young age, this kind of set the bar for me on how good hospitality can be. That was then reinforced, when I moved to Chicago as well, and seeing how they handle hospitality. In the US, they have a very different approach, but also extremely impressive. So that was what gave me my standard, of what I feel is excellent, hospitality. And then meeting Gabriel and bringing him in as an advisor, he's been able to educate us all on how to provide the kind of service that's super high with his experience and background working with brands like Scorpios, Habitas, Casa Malca Nomade, setting up programs internationally in Mykonos. He's a global hospitality director, consultant who's famous in the field, one of the best in the game. So he helped reinforce that, So basically by focusing on the things that we should be giving our clients, such as, perfect property management. So we had to go and find the best possible team to give the best possible experience, because with good property managers, it reduces the stress so much. So when you arrive, things are ready for you. You know where you're going. You know where your towels are, for example. You always have a perfect line of communication, and they can provide services to you also, like concierge services. We have a full menu of concierge services, which are either supplied by our property managers or our hospitality team on site. As well as concierge services, we also embrace wellness, throughout the whole project. Okay, so not just in our hospitality program, also in the way we design our homes. For example, as I mentioned earlier, the way that we play with light and the movement, the way that we tune the lighting to different frequencies to affect your circadian rhythms and to enhance your sleep. Things like that, are always considered, in not just in the hospitality program, but all the general wellness that you experience when you are in the project. But the wellness menu that we have is actually very, very impressive. We're fortunate to have access to a lot of innovative technology here, such as stem cell therapies, anti-aging treatments, Tamascals, which is it's a regional therapy, which is an ancient type of therapy from the Mayans. So we can offer these kind of services as well on top of innovative, anti-aging therapies. Massages, obviously, yoga, all different types of yoga you can have in our yoga sala on site or in your home. Likewise with if you're having massages and things like that, you can choose different areas if you want to do it in a communal area, in the spa, if you want to do it in your own home. So it really depends on your preference. But, our commitment is just to always provide a perfect service, without any exceptions. So what is a day in the life of a resident of the TOPIA project here in Pino Suarez, Riviera Maya? Well, one might expect to wake up to the sun, go and watch the sunrise off the rooftop. All of our villas have absolutely amazing rooftop areas because the canopies that you look down on of the trees are just outstanding. You can see for miles. Sometimes you can see water masses. You will see amazing birds and hear them. And the sunrise, you see both the sunrise and the sunset from that balcony. So the rooftops are super important to us, which is why we also fit them with, high-end appliances, in some cases, steam rooms, sauna facilities, gymnasiums. The rooftops are very important because this is really is the area that you need to celebrate. In this project, you are looking out over a mass of trees, and there's nothing really if you haven't seen that, it's very, very difficult to explain the sensation you get from that. It's like kind of liberating. So you wake up and you watch the sunrise. And in some cases, you may have called our concierge team to bring in a private chef to prepare you breakfast on that day. So after watching the sunrise and feeling a sense of relaxation from that, and energized as well, and you can come down to eat some locally sourced chopped fruit and vegetables, healthy food. You can also, if you're a meat eater, you can also have some of the best quality meat from the north of Mexico. So the quality of the food, whether it's vegetables, fruit, juices, it's all fresh, local, and you can taste that, So you have an absolutely outstanding breakfast. You feel revitalized. Then you might want to head down to the yoga sala and practice a morning routine, which a lot of our residents like to do. The yoga sala is a very tranquil place. It's a beautiful palapa, and it's a beautiful place to kind of set your day off. Once you've eaten, you stretch it out, and you do your sun salutations. Once you finish that, you're going to feel truly relaxed and ready and inspired and thinking about what you're going to do that day. Now, for me and for the team, kind of sparking creativity or inspiring others to be creative is something important. I feel like if you have a truly innovative project and space, it will just naturally create people to feel creative, right? So that's why we feel that a lot of people will want to do things like painting, pottery. So after you finish your yoga, you might come back to the house and maybe do something creative, maybe like writing, maybe have a typewriter there. You want to sit down and just try writing your day's, notes, or talking, about a book idea that you're working on, or maybe you're going to paint, or, something to that effect. After that, we encourage siestas like they love over in Spain particularly. So take a nice rest. People don't rest enough, in the West. So enjoy a nice rest, right? Wake up and maybe you'll have a massage on the rooftop from one of the other menu items on our concierge menu. While you're having that massage, you may even be lucky enough to be watching the sunset at the same time. So you can only imagine how that might feel. So then, once you've finished watching the sunset and you feel truly relaxed and satisfied and healed, then you may wish to change into a nice outfit and to head down to the Tulum hotel zone and pick from one of the world-renowned hotels that you can find down there, such as Nomade, Habitas, Azulit, Casamalca. I mean, that you have an abundance of options and they are so great. And that's one of the biggest features of Tulum. So you can finish off with a lovely meal. What do I like about, this ambition we have to create this legacy project is when we finish this project, we'll be left with something that will stand the test of time. Something that will be remembered, appreciated for years to come. It will not only inspire people, but it will also leave my imprint, my mark on this planet when I'm gone, you know. So my children and their children can potentially look at those homes and say, that was my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and you know, but it's by no means ego-driven. That's just basically a bonus, I would say. For me, I like the idea of being able to pull together our resources, as I said earlier, which are abundant, the talent that we have in this area, and actually put together an amazing team like we have and get everyone to work without limits, right? There are no limits. Just free flow and enjoy it. And really, you know, people who are top experts generally love what they do. So I'm just saying, here you go, enjoy yourself, you know, there's no limits, you know, we've got to build, you know, just free flow, and then we'll refine if necessary. So, you know, that applies to all areas. So with that, you know, you're bound to produce an excellent result, you know, with that, you know, and that will then be a standing residence that in time will not only reflect my ideas, but will reflect the talents of the contributors that existed in Tulum at this time. So it's kind of creating a snapshot of what we are in right now that will last, you know. So it's not just testament to anyone's idea individually, but really a celebration of the talent and the abundance of innovative ideas and methods and, you know, material usage. And that's what you know, I wanted to do. Let's get everyone to really do their best job in their specific area, and you're going to end up with something that will really stand the test of time. And an added bonus to that is that you will inspire people for years to come, you know, possibly centuries. You'll be able to inspire people that you'll never meet. So with respect to my favorite villa, it's kind of like asking me what's my favorite song, to be honest, you know. It's never stayed the same, you know. Sometimes my favorite song might last 10 years until I find the next favorite song. It's somewhat comparable in the villas because each villa has so much semantics behind, you know, as I mentioned earlier, like traditional style haciendas they float my boat. That's my love. That's my passion is traditional timeless architecture, which is mainly shown in Los Arcos and Hacienda. Those two villas and Aire, I say, were I mean, they're my favorite is you know, is a kind of broad, right? One might be my favorite because I enjoyed the process. One might be it's my favorite because I like the aesthetics. You know, I really enjoyed the process of designing Aire, for example. You know, Mario Gonzalez and his wife Yolanda were very much involved in that. Mario Gonzalez and his partner were very much involved in that process with myself as well. So it was kind of like creating something bespoke for them. And because they felt that this villa was going to be theirs one day, you know, with conviction, which I believe they will have that villa one day, very soon. You know, when you're designing your perfect villa with someone who really understands real estate like Mario, you know, I mentioned his family background, you know, that guy has grown up around luxury real estate, you know, through his family. So watching him and his considerations was very impressive. You know, it's very much like a brainstorming exercise. You bounce ideas off each other. So we really took the initial design and like leveled it up with so many cool characteristics together to make it as comfortable as possible and to make it into Mario's dream home. We put the gymnasium on the roof. We put a spiral staircase going up to the gymnasium from the master bedroom. but because Mario wanted to have easy access to a gymnasium. So as would your, most people, right? So it was really kind of a process. Something that I really enjoy doing is trying my best to help realize people's imaginations, dreams, ideas, and help them execute that visually, right? So that was an enjoyable process for sure. Mario's very much into anti-aging wellness, hence why we have the hot cold plunge up there. The outdoor kitchen area, which is just perfect for entertaining guests and enjoying the sunsets and sunrises. So that was an exceptional process. Design-wise, I absolutely adore it as well, and as does Guillermo. Actually, he says I think it's his favourite, besides his own. Obviously, but anyway, they all, those three, Los Arcos I mentioned earlier, so I won't go through the full story, but how that went from a hand drawing to being something created by actual Meridian architects that built a hacienda on our guidance, which took a lot of revisions actually, because they built Icao. Anyone who knows Icao, it's very rustic. So asking these kind of style of architects to design you a hacienda, it was a challenge for them, right? It took them a few goes, but when they got it, they nailed it. The drop living room in there, the high ceilings, and the bookshelf behind it. It was just, that was me. That was the same exercise, but for me and my wife. Literally, it was like, let's design our ideal home. That was Los Arcos phase 1, which I may share some images of for if anyone's interested, but then together with Patricio, turning it into what it is now. I mean, that was just an amazing exercise and so satisfying, so fulfilling, when you nail it, Hacienda, once again, having the opportunity to work with Guillermo, and having Guillermo respect my kind of opinion on aesthetics enough to sort of create the interiors and give me freedom to do what I wanted around that. So we had his, the benefit of Guillermo's obsession and expertise in movement and flow around villas, which he is the best I've seen at doing that. We took that and we just gave it some TOPIA styling, put the green handmade tiles around the place. Once again, I think I already said this earlier, but Patricio from Eros just did such a great job there. So if we execute this project as well as we intend to do it, we'll have something that will inspire people for centuries to come. And what this means is that these people won't know it, but what they're seeing is what happens when great minds come together and really do and strive for excellence and achieve that. So it will be an example. They won't know the story, but they'll see the story. With respect to the future of the project, so as I mentioned earlier, the Genesis collection is named the Genesis collection because it's the first one. We plan to scale the project. With the amount of time and energy we've put into the brands, we're only doing it justice by showing it in other locations around the world. Those locations we already have in mind, many different ones. We've been very fortunate through contacts of our contributors to be offered, some of the prime real estate locations, some of the most prime real estate locations in the world. Our main consideration for where we do our future projects is really going to be, there will always be places where of natural abundance, tranquility, special magical places where we just add our touch. So the magic isn't really us, it's the location, and what we're doing is just trying to justify that and create a platform for people to enjoy that to the maximum that they can.